pre-recorded audio for posterity. This is Swerve. This is Saturday at the 2019 Theme Camp Symposium, and this breakout session is called Courtship, Hugs, and Hazings, Acculturating New Camp Members. So thank you guys all for being here. We will pass around this little microphone today as much as we can. We would like to, if there are valuable nuggets of wisdom and vulnerability that come out of this session, if there's something that might edify or otherwise bless or make someone feel better about themselves, then we will share it. So hopefully that will happen. The idea today, if you have not yet already, if you want to text the word Symposium to this number, you'll get a little handy link in your phone, which will have kind of some notes from our class. If that stops working because I have a free account, I think it's only going to let me do that for like 50 people. But if that stops, then you can enter in this, and I put a little link through my camp's website, and it'll get you there, and it'll tell you all about our moderators today, and you can like get in touch with them and cyber stalk them. Halcyon, what's it like to be cyber stalked?
I was young and I needed the money.
So, welcome for being here. Glad you guys are here. I got about 2.5 hours of sleep, which some of you probably do the same thing, because we're burners. But today is going to be about 60 to 70% dialogue with 3 panelists that we have as our guests. And so I'm going to introduce them to you now, or if you're looking on your phone, you see some little notes over there. But at your far right is Miss Candy Ass, Candace Love. She is, first burn was 1997, and she's been a part of multiple theme camps and helped co-found Blissfit's Retirement Village. One of her other famous claim to fame, well, she has a minor one, which is that she helped bring Blue Man Group to the world. But then her major accomplishment is that in 2016 she skipped a burn. And she skipped it because she had twin human lives in her belly that were threatening to come out, and sure enough they did, and her husband flew home in a rush. And so now there's a pair of 2-year-olds that run around the playa, and they celebrate the birthday on the playa every day.
They've had their first and second birthday on playa. They'll only know their birthdays on playa, and it's pretty freaking awesome. And they do better out there than we do. Go for it.
And Candy S has also been
so their teens and they can't go.
Personally, to me, I am relatively new at getting involved in trying to influence Black Rock City, and she has been a patient leader with me and given me some one-on-one therapy sessions as my little virgin leader heart gets crushed every once in a while. And so I really appreciate her tenure and the amount of time that she has put into Burning Man, both for herself and her village and for us. Thank you. And your camp, or the village size you're in right now, is about
160, 175.
Okay, just for reference, because in a minute I'm going to ask you guys about your camps. And then sitting right next to her is Jim Wheaton from Joby Coffee, Tea, or Me.
Joby is the opposite of FOMO. It's the joy of being in.
Yeah, I like it. And we're falling down already. Jim, you are in Oakland?
Right.
And your camp size, you guys are around 30, 35 people, is that right?
25,
oh, perfect.
20 to 25.
I love that
we're
even
small,
more.
And we're going to stay that size.
Love it. Man after my own heart. Tell us a little bit about your history, because I've got it less on the top of my head.
First burn 2010. Came into a camp, Joby, that was actually not a placed camp at all. It was just a bunch of friends who'd go out and do the land rush and have fun. And I said, no, we got to offer something to the playa. What can we offer that nobody else is doing? And being an early morning person, I saw that nothing's happening early in the morning except rangers walking around and people in a state of enhanced confusion trying to find their camps. And I said, why don't we do a sunrise coffee service? And so we do coffee, tea, hot chocolate, and other treats at 7 a.m. every morning of every day.
Thank you.
Yep.
And thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
I can appreciate that it's fun to come here and network with your friends and participate in some sessions for your own benefit, carving out time to be available here. I really appreciate it. And then lastly, we have Halcyon, John Stein.
Stin, rhymes with chin.
Gets used to everybody saying that probably. Or no, it's just me.
It's pretty normal.
Stin, John Stein. Pink Heart. First burn was 98. Founded multiple camps, co-founded Pink Heart. You may also be aware of him from lots of notorious endeavors that he has thrown himself into, like Burning Man training acculturation videos. Probably started to benefit his own camp, but certainly have gone far beyond and reached lots of ways there. Also has a homeless outreach ministry I was reading about the other day.
Yep, based on gifting.
Love that, taking burner culture into the world. And then a Hug Nation video blog that one of my burners in my camp got me hooked on.
Oh, right
so
on.
occasionally I
Yay.
check in there and find some kindred heart. And so I just want to, I think I was telling you indirectly through the video of the day, I really appreciate the level of vulnerability that you have offered to the Burning Man community. And I really think that that is a gift. It is easy for all of us to stand up and brag about our high points or our successes or things that we already know that people esteem in us, but it takes a different level of leadership and heart to go and say, I'm going to offer you the things that I struggle with, or the things that shake me, or the things that I'm afraid of. And that has been very meaningful to me. So thank you. And if you have not enjoyed some of his podcasts, blogs, you might find that also, if that was just a little micro sales pitch there.
Luckily, I still have a huge inventory of things that I'm really bad at. So
No end in sight. So, if you haven't figured out yet, the title of this class, Courtship, Hugs, and Hazings, Acculturating New Camp Members. The purpose of this class really today is not to teach you how to acculturate your camp members the way that we might. But what we really want to do is kind of help you begin to get excited and brainstorm and think about, in the context of your camp, how can you and the leaders of your camp help acculturate new camp? Whether they be virgins to the playa, whether they be veteran burners or DPW members, or maybe they are, lifelong career of festivals, and they're coming into Burning Man and they're just having a hard time adjusting their expectations, those sorts of things. I really, really hope that this will help you understand that culture is absolutely, there is a culture across Black Rock City that connects us. But then there are thousands of little microcultures in each of our theme camps and our art camps. And each time 3 or 4 people go out and decide to do something generous, even there they have a specific DNA and culture, expectations, a contract, an ethos that they have together that they take with them. And that is the culture that when we invite somebody into our camp, we're acculturating them, yes, to 10 principles in Black Rock City overall, but we all know that for it to really work, we've got to fit in this little tribe. And so for me, with Comfy Cozy Voodoo Lounge, that means 35 people from Sacramento, of which last year 66% of our camp was first-year virgins to playa. So communicating, all that stuff is just one part of it. So anyway, I'm glad you're here. We don't need it anymore. And so questions to be thinking about today. And if you are someone who is a kinetic learner and you want to write things down, I've written some of these questions up here. Or if you just get bored with what one of us is saying, you go like, let me think about that interesting question. But things to be thinking about today is, what is your camp's unique culture? What characteristics define you as a community? Not the cool camp next to you or the last camp that you're a part of, but what are the unique characteristics of your camp that make your culture unique? What are you actually inviting them to? How do you communicate your cultural characteristics and expectations? This is one of my favorite quotes. Stress is the result of misplaced or mismanaged expectations. The girl I have a crush on, I thought she was going to call me Friday night and ask me over. She didn't. I experienced stress inside, disappointment, because I had misplaced an expectation that Aaron was going to call me. Right? Or mismanaged causes a lot of stress for us. I tell someone, I think I can have that done by next Tuesday. I got you. You can count on me. And then my time management goes upside down. I get to Tuesday, I haven't done it. Stress for me and for the person I made the commitment to, right? So I love this. How do you communicate your culture, characteristics, and expectations? If we don't do this well, it causes stress. And when we get on Playa, and some poor virgin is having the worst day of their life, following the second best day of their life.
Then they're at Burning Man.
And the Playa's trying to kill them.
Exactly.
And things get really stressful, right? So next thing is, how do you know what new camp members expect of you when they join your camp? And that one I feel like gets, I'm good, thank you. That one I feel like does not get enough attention sometimes. We're all about communicating our needs. Hey, you need to do your shift, you need to pay your dues, you need to take care of your own trash. You know, we are a safe camp. Here's where consent is a big part of our culture and our DNA. And like we're telling, but we're not listening. And so sometimes one of my favorite things to ask when someone calls me or sends me an email and says, hey, I'm interested in joining your camp, I say, great, I want to call you. I call you and say, tell me about yourself. Why do you want to join a camp? And I just start listening for, do these things that they're telling me already naturally resonate with who we are? When do you communicate your expectations? Who communicates them? And how do you communicate them effectively? What continued communication and reinforcement is necessary to maintain culture? And how will you know if your acculturation efforts are working? So these are just some questions to be priming your prompt. I'm going to introduce our panelists, and then last I'm going to ask you guys to participate here real quick so that they can get an idea of the demographics of the room. Ready?
Yeah.
So ready to participate? I need jazz hands and whoops when it's appropriate. How many of you here come from a camp that is less than 50 members? Woo! All right, so it looks like maybe a third. Yeah, I was going to say about a third. How many of you, your camp is between 50 and 100 people? Oh, look at that. Maybe a third to 40%. That's pretty good. And then how many of you here come from a camp that's over 150 people? Yep. Whoa, we got some elephants in the room. All right. Cool. And then we already identified who was our person here is coming from a camp. This is their first year, their theme camp's coming to Playa.
May the place for gods be with you.
Exactly.
And then how many of you, this is just a periodic question, how many of you meet a new member to your camp face-to-face before you get to Playa? Okay, so half to a third. So that means, like, what I mean is sometimes people join our camps and the first time we meet them is when we actually get on Playa. How many of you would describe that as your situation? Okay. Interesting challenge, right? Because so much of our day-to-day communication is face, tone of voice, body language, shared experiences that we have before we get to Playa. How many of you have a written down acculturation plan where you're like, this is how we acculturate new members into our camp? Don't be shy. Okay, so those of you that are kind of raising your hands, everybody else, that's who we're buying drinks tonight. And they're going to tell us what they're doing, all right? How many of you that have an acculturation plan, you feel like it's going pretty well, and you're here just to think about how to make it better? Awesome. Thank you, guys.
That was fewer hands.
All right. How many of you are a brand new camp lead? The camp might not be new, but you're new. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Bless you.
How many over 3 years? Gotcha. Great. Okay. How many can keep their hands up over 5 years? Great. You haven't burned out yet. All right. Last thing I want to ask you is not a question for you to answer, but just to think about. When you think about culture, is it the same as compliance? And I'm begging the question. Obviously, it's not. But I want you to begin to think about what is the difference between just compliance and culture. Because I think as leaders, we tend to be we're shepherds. We care about our flock. We want them to all be safe, and we also want to get to party when we go to Playa, right? And so we need them to follow directions so that we can go party and not have to come scoop out black water off the fly or something, right? And so we are focused largely on the responsibility that weighs heavy on our shoulders, both for the community, for their safety, for the logistics. We want to have a good leave no trace record with the board. We want to get placed again next year. We have a lot of responsibility things that tend to get us task focused. Not a bad thing, but sometimes the things that sabotage our tasks getting accomplished are actually cultural issues. And that's what I would propose to you, and that's why I think we should be here talking about this. So, we good?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now, in 4 minutes, we are going to open the floor here, and we're going to begin to ask questions about how, so you guys get a little heads up, we're going to begin asking you guys questions about how did you come to lead your camp to understand its culture? What was that process like? Or how did you go about discovering it? Or when did you recognize it and you go, oh, this is who we are? So I want to talk a little bit about recognizing our own culture. But for the next 3 minutes, while this next song is playing, I want you guys to find some people around you, 3 or 4 people, and please start talking about what makes your camp unique. What is the unique cultural characteristics of your camp that you already know? Go.
Wow. What makes yours unique?
Blind allegiance to leaders.
Absolutely. From benevolent dictatorship, yes.
Yeah. Good question. Starting with a strong vision, I think, is brought together by the vision of gifting as opposed to any like social connection.
Interesting. Ours, as I described, my camp had been in existence for, it's a little unclear, 5 or 10 years before I joined it. As I say, it was never placed and none of it did anything. And then I came and I said, no, we got to be doing something. Came up with the coffee to your me idea, said we're going to do this, got placement, and that changed our culture immensely. And so it's always been about a social group of very tight, cohesive people. And then I've added and pushed the idea of, okay, now we're going to offer something to the choir and the gifting. So.
I don't need one.
Bless you. Thank you.
All right.
Sure. Thank you. Let me just write down. Age,
Water
race,
millionaire.
and religion diversity of our camp is like off the charts.
Us too.
Yeah.
We're not.
Yours is a lot. Is what was it
We're
about?
18 to 65 in age, and we're only 20, 25
And
people.
international, you have a lot of
We
yeah,
do.
that was the thing.
We always have people from overseas.
2 to 92.
I hope you were.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
You
No.
got the
Answer all digits.
Or really 1 to 92.
Well, I'm just so happy we're able to get even with a small group to still have some
Yeah.
diversity.
I think it's a process.
Definitely is, yeah. What?
People in the room are here to understand or get insight on how we culturate or experience.
Yeah, well,
And they're the things that truly
I hope this is helpful. I just want to sit here
this is all being recorded. So.
shut up. And you know what?
those are things you would need to communicate.
Yeah, we'll see.
It is a lot.
Take a note for the first thing we're talking about.
And now I'm going to try to not talk. All right, guys, let's start wrapping it up. We have more time to talk.
And I'm going to try it. I want us to record, I'm going to try it.
All right. Raise of hands. Somebody that has a question. One, two, three. Eyes on me. I love that. All right. So, I would like. Is there anybody that came out of that? You're like, I have a question already, just burning. No, that's okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Thanks for that. Well, now that I'm on the spot. So our camp, I am Legends of the Hidden Playa. What our camp does is we have an obstacle course that each different room of it is a different aspect of Burning Man, and it's kind of a test your Burning Man preparedness and trivia knowledge and all of that, kind of all in a fun, energetic, high energy. We have hecklers. It's a great time. So one of the big reasons I wanted to come to this talk was that our interactivity is Burning Man culturization. Like, that's basically everything we do. We quiz people on the principles. We have all these little aspects of Burning Man culture that we're having to interact with our interactivity. How do I get our camp culture to be separate from that when I've got virgins who are still doing work shifts, and so my virgins are quizzing people on the principles, so they have to know all of that? How do I teach them all of the things they have to know for a shift while also teaching them the things for camp without just handing them a textbook saying, learn all of this in a week, because that's overwhelming.
So I hear kind of two parts to your question. One is how do I do this without just like giving it to them saying, read this book and learn it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I kind of heard is that it's challenging because you have so much that you're trying to teach. You're teaching your interactivity, which is basically like Burning Man 101 type thing. And then also trying to communicate your own culture. Is that right?
Yeah, more or less.
Any of our three panelists like to speak to that? Just different methods other than rote text?
You should be able to leave the mic.
Do you think it can pick them all up there? Let's do it.
If you guys, it should be fine about
Project.
right there. And if you would just project your questions, we'll catch it without having to just swap that little sucker around. Shit, what was the question?
I'm so sorry. Oh, it's all good.
So not to
rollout of communications throughout the year we do with camp, and I do it in a way that it's like bullet point out, or like this PDF that's like bullet pointed. I try to do like one sheets, and we start in March is like we start in January communications, but if there's like newbies in our camp, with the newbies as they come up, and like we call them cousins. If somebody's been in our camp for 10 years, they're allowed 2 cousins. If somebody's been in our camp for 2 years, they're allowed 1 cousin, maybe. But our dark council is 4 members. The 4 members interview, and if we're like, pass, then that's what it is. That's how we keep the cousins to a minimal. But we start the rollout of the communications in March, and they just keep going and going and getting a little bit more in depth.
Okay.
So it's get in there and get it, early.
Little bits often.
Huh?
Is a cousin a virgin referral?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry, yes. It's like a Hawaiian thing too, sorry. Cousins. Hey, that's my cousin. So that's kind of...
So some of what you're saying is just starting really early,
Absolutely.
and then reinforcing it over and over.
Absolutely. The Department of Redundancy department, whoever was in the other room, that's my shtick. I'm like, what? I'm going to say it 5 times until you hate it.
Your camp is about the same size as ours. So we're relatively small, 25, 30, as I said, we're going to stay there. So we're actually highly selective. Nobody can invite anyone into our camp among our people. What you can do is nominate someone who you would like. That person is then interviewed, usually by an experienced camp member, well, always by an experienced camp member, and goes through the expectations we have. I won't say what they all are, but it's a fairly short list, about 10 things in addition to 10 principles. They go through it with the person, and if the person looks like they're going to get it, then they're invited to a meeting face-to-face, if at all possible, if not at least by phone. And then one of the leaders, we have a triumvirate, will actually read those back to them in very short form, short sentence fragments. You agree to blank, 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 blank. And we agree that we will take care of you. Whatever goes wrong, we're there for you, and so forth. Yeah. And then we ask them, will you accept those rules? Answer yes, they always say yes. And then we say, do we collectively want this person in our camp with us? And we unanimously say yes. And what that reinforces is that we don't have one person coming in. And when the newbie comes in, they don't just have one person. Mm-hmm. They've joined a community, because our ethos starts with one simple statement. And I'm going to credit my partner, Impulse, who's leading another one right now. Yay. She pulled me aside and said, Jim, we are not just building a camp. we're building a community as well. We're building both of those. And so it starts from the very moment they come in, you're invited by the whole camp, not by an individual. And that's a really important part. And then every newbie is assigned a shepherd. And that any newbie to the camp, or especially newbie to the burn, and that is their go-to person beginning in March or April, before, during, and after the event, so that they always have somebody to interface with, whether it's like, where are the porta potties, to how do I, or I'm having a hard time, whatever. And it's usually not the person who nominated them. So they build a bond with another person,
That's really smart.
and they can ask any embarrassing question with that person and not feel like they have to go, I don't know who to talk to. And so that, I think the shepherding thing for us is probably the most important part of acculturation. It's not just once, twice, it's continuous.
I love that what you just described kind of reinforces that you are becoming a part of a community, even in that initial rite. And I got the sense that it is kind of almost like a rite of passage. It's a very, almost had a ceremonial feel to it. It's like, we're saying this thing that feels maybe kind of formal. It could feel kind of stiff, but it also has meaning and weight to it. And that they are a participant as well. I really like that. You have a follow-up question for?
I just have a quick question, because you said your camp was how many people?
25 to 30.
25. And what, I just wanted to be reminded of how big the other panelists camps were.
100.
100.
160, 175.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you want to add anything to that for your experience?
We also do a sponsorship type program, but now I'm thinking that we really need to step it up with our vocabulary. We need to make it much more interesting. Could take just a step back to so we start acculturation, with meetings that start first of the year. We kind of have a video Zoom meeting that kind of goes throughout the year, but really starts in January. Once a month, every first Sunday, we have a Zoom meeting that people tune in from all over the world. And from every meeting, we start talking about the values of the camp and of the mission and why we're doing it. And making a lot of emphasis on the gift of being able to do this. And so and then we just finished off doing a bunch of surveys to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we want to do the same things, so that we don't have a group of people that is dictating the rules to people. We have all collectively said that is this what we want to do? Because if it's not what you want to do, then this is the wrong camp for you. If you do want to do this, then we're going to be expecting you to be a part of this. But the gratitude, for the opportunity to be there, is something that we try to make a part of it throughout, so that we don't have the laborers and leaders.
Any follow-up questions on this? Of basically, just go ahead. Margaret.
How do you instill gratitude?
Can you speak up so that the mic can...
How do you instill gratitude?
How do you instill gratitude?
First, punish people, and then say... Isn't it nice without that? No. I think that if you could take a step back from what you got to do to make the camp, and really come back to the reality that in the history of humanity, the number of people that have got to experience Burning Man is so small, and the people that get to actually, there's kind of the way I tell people every meeting is that there's the opportunity to have the resources to come together and work on something where the purpose is to add creativity, add whatever it is that you want to add to the world. You can do that with people that you care about. That is such a gift in our culture, in our world, that if you don't feel like this is a gift to do it, then this is not for you.
Go Coachella.
I like that. Back here. Real loud though.
Sure. So a follow-up question for the guy in the middle.
Wheat thin.
Wheat thin.
Wheat thin.
Not just a delicious snack cracker.
What are the questions you ask people, and who asks the question of those potential members?
Oh, really fair. Well,
Can you repeat it?
Yeah, I'll repeat it. What are the questions that we ask for potential newbies, and who does the asking? When a nomination comes in, we take a nomination and we try to make sure one of our senior camp members then does the interview, whether they're the nominator or not. And what they basically do is run through our 10 or so expectations about how our camp is run, and interweave it. I liked your comment with what would you like to get out of Burning? Why do you want to come? So we can measure, are we the right camp for you? So the questions have to do with that everybody works, everybody pays, we're complete equality that way. No special favors. We don't accept rock stars. Everybody's expected to contribute as much as they can. Things like that. We don't, no drama. If you're going to have a breakup, please do that off playa and then come afterward, please. It's those kinds of things, overarching things. And then, as I said, we weave in, what do you want to do? What are you looking for? What have you heard about? And that allows us to find out, is this going to be a good fit? And we're very clear that if it's not going to work for us, we actually will help them find a camp that's going to be good for them. And we've done that a number of times. Like, you know what, you are going to party in a different way than we do, and so, but there's this great camp for you, and I'm going to give you the name of my friend in that camp. So that's how we do it.
I'll second that. I have a list of trusted camp leaders that I've worked with that I know just have different vibes or different requirements or different gift kind of DNA. And it's been a blessing to say, like, it's not a rejection. It's just, this is a diverse city and you're a virgin burner and you don't know what you don't know. So let me maybe help you find places where you might have even better burn. There was a question right there.
This is a follow-up for Crash's question originally that I think Candy answered. And that is, you were talking about, how do you get information to the new members without, handing them a textbook? Yeah. And Candy asked, you had mentioned that you start communication very early. Does that mean that you don't take new members after a certain deadline? Because, our camp made, so it's like, what's your,
Yes.
For everybody at home, I just stuck my finger up and chicken neck it. Yes, we have a deadline.
So what is your deadline, and how did and for us, it's, we don't obviously have as early a deadline as you, otherwise I would be.
So for those of you listening at home, the question is, do you have a deadline after which you don't accept new members?
Strategic rollout of documentation to vet people that are potential members, a Zoom call, or like a Zoom, so we can look in the whites of their eyes.
Face-to-face Skype.
Face-to-face, yeah. And then we scare them a little. That's always fun. Don't come if you want to just go sparkle and shine. If you're not willing to get your hands dirty, because I will say that I would say about 90%. The people that come to us, and there's randoids that I don't even know where the hell they find us that reach out. P. Diddy reached out one year, and I was like, what? Yeah, that was funny. I hung up on him too. I was like, I don't know how I found him, but I was like, no, absolutely not. There's been many conversations where the response was, I don't think that Burning Man is where you want to be. Perhaps Coachella's, a better fit for a music festival. Seriously? Our deadline is, I want to say second or third week of July. Yeah, that's it.
I said my camp is July.
Of the year of the, so it will be
of
this
the year
July.
Of the burn. Yeah, so this July.
You're still sending out early communications to members that you already have.
Yeah.
Right? So when you're getting in new members, they're kind of behind speed with communication. Right. So then, are you handing them a textbook?
No, I think, and that's where the scare tactics come in. Of dude, you know what? We all decided, and we really effing love you. So you're in, but you got some serious speed reading and speed dating to do because you got some catch up. We've been really working with people, to get them up to this speed. You will be tested. Furthermore, and in the scary tactics of here's what you got to do, because there's another aspect of what we do in acculturation of what's okay and what's not okay in our camp.
So maybe a follow-up from Halcyon, and then I'm going to go back here to the yellow shirt.
I was going to say, we do a webinar for newbies, but also for returning people, where we go through a lot with principles stuff for new people. We go through all camp procedures and ways that we do things. We're thinking about breaking this up into multiple things because it is a lot to do, including probably a new one about consent and things, and also a thing on camp policies and how we fill water and how we do certain things. But there's also some of the cultural things that just become baked into the way, our vocabulary and things. We try to talk about dues, we talk about camp gift, and we try to how do we use vocabulary so it's about a collective gifting experience, so that we don't have people coming in saying, well, what do I get for my dues or things like that.
Right.
And so we try to make the way we talk about team leads and responsibilities and fundraising all within the context of together we get to do this thing that's going to be so much more amazing than we could do by ourselves. And so that people feel a part of that, then when they're late they can rewatch the webinar or something like that and catch up.
Thank you. Do you still have your question in the back?
How do you look at retention in your camp year on year and bringing people up the ranks and people that skip years and come back and what does that look like?
Yeah, retention stuff, especially if you're a small camp, because attrition, I mean, things happen in people's lives. So in years that we're recruiting, because we need a lot of people to replace, then we can be a little more flexible on the timing and so forth. Not a problem this year, holy shit. Everybody's coming back. So it ebbs and flows. We do have a policy that once you have been with Joby, as long as you're still in good standing, you can always come back. Once you're a Jobyite, you're always a Jobyite, unless you turned out you were a Sparkle Pony, in which case you ain't coming back. That's a vague answer to your question, but.
In the far back, Stanley?
How do you guys think about the ratio of veterans to new people? Because there's definitely a point where if you brought in 90 new people and just had 10 veterans, like the culture doesn't exist anymore. It's so run by the agitators and the members. So there is some magic number, and I think that also depends on what the institution is. But how do you guys?
We have a hard and fast rule.
Yeah.
It's no more than 25% newbies. A third if we had to because something's gone wrong. A bunch of people couldn't make it that year, but it's a hard cap at that point because newbies are great, but they're a lot of work. So 25% is pretty firm.
And I would propose that this is a contextual question. I don't think there's a magic number. I think you need to consider what your strengths are and the weaknesses that you might have as the size of your camp. For Halcyon to have a camp of 100 people, and I don't know what your number or ratio is or if you have one, but for him to bring in 50 virgins at 50% with 50 other people that are still reinforcing the culture is very different than if you have a camp of 18 people and there's only 9 people reinforcing the culture. So
I will say that we're like at 5 to 7%.
5 to 7. Oh, but so you're a very mature camp that's been going for a long time.
I mean, our camps, like a lot of people in our camp are like, I mean, I have 20. I can't even count anymore. 97 minus a year. It's been a long freaking time. And then most of our camp members are also like 10, 20 years. And then there's now people that are, like 8 to 10 years. So nobody wants to deal with it. It's called the retirement village for a reason.
Oh. We're going to go next here. Sorry. I am trying to kind of pay attention to when the hands come up. Just if I'm doing a bad job, like flip me off or something.
I would add also, Julia and I and John built the acculturation program for King Card. It isn't about the number of new burners in your camp. It's about, I think there's contextually also this understanding of like, are they brand new burners or are they brand new to your camp?
Brand new to your village. Yep.
I don't have to acculturate you any tech principles. If you've been going for a long time, what I have to teach you is what King Card actually is.
Right.
So we tend to take that into consideration.
That's part of the flex.
Also. And then also the level of activity of our sponsor and how much they participated in the culture also.
Oh, interesting.
Made a big difference.
Okay. So the strength of the sponsor adds some merit to the formula for you. Right here beside me. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You go and then we'll get you. Sorry.
On that note, because that's really fascinating to me, do you find that a veteran burner is much harder to acculturate to your camp?
More than a newbie.
Yeah. Yep.
But it's really fun and challenging, and to see that moment.
Or maybe it's just different though too, because you don't have to explain to them that it's difficult to stay alive on the playa. But my experience was, it continues to be that veteran burners have ideas of how they want to burn.
Yeah, and
they want to take those ideas with them wherever they go. And many of those are good ideas. Yeah. It's not for me to say it's our way or the highway, but I think sometimes we are more reluctant to change when we have muscle memory from a previous context. So
I would love to hear your response.
a sponsor can bring one person, and we no longer accept groups of people to come, partially because we don't want people to bring like, oh, we left this camp and we bring our culture and we bring our expectations, we bring our clique. And so when we have a one-to-one, and also people are often, if they're a veteran and they want to join our camp, it's often they're drawn to the vibe or something that they've experienced. We often get a lot of new people who've spent a lot of time at our camp, so then they want to join the camp. So it's not a huge, jarring to our culture when someone's coming in, because they're generally motivated to get a little bit of what we're serving.
Part of the way we handle it is when we have an experienced burner wanting to join our camp, who's going to come with different expectations about everything, is we will choose a shepherd who feels like a peer. An equally experienced burner, so that you don't have any of the, shoulder
ego
stuff and ego and all that. Like,
Good use of shepherd.
Sorry?
Good use of shepherd.
Did you still have a question?
Yes.
Okay, please go. Sorry.
Okay, we have a small camp of like 15 to 20 people, and we have most of our people don't go every year. Like people go every other year, every 3 years. And I was just wondering, we have the same people, but they're never there at the same time. And do you have any advice on how to manage that?
Well, we're actually experiencing that quite a bit. It's funny, the last 2 years. What a juxtaposition. Last year, it was like everybody wanted to come back, and we don't have the real estate for everybody to come back, nor do we want to, we cap the amount of RVs that we will have in our camp. So, and not everybody that wanted to come back within an RV, but there's like a good 10 or 12 people that were like, sorry, no, that's just not going to work. And then this year, I made one exception last year. Somebody that had been camping with us for 5 years, he brought a grouping of people. I let him bring 7 people, group of 8 people. Biggest mistake.
Oh.
I was like, that's why we have that rule. So they're not going to.
What went wrong? In short, they brought their own culture.
Some people just don't want to be acculturated. And this is somebody that'd been in our camp for 4 years, and they just don't want it. And at that point, all you can do and not make drama for me, being triggered and you're crunchy and you need to drink more water. Let's put a pin in this. And then the conversation after Burning Man is, thank you, we're complete. We're not the camp for you. You know what I mean? But this year, there's so many people taking the year off that we really had to sit down and talk about it. And we're like, you know what? We'll be smaller. That's fine. Great. And just let it be what it's going to be. How do we deal with it as far as our overhead and operational? I'm really good at numbers and QuickBooks and Excel porn, and we figure it out and cut and pull and push from here to there and make it frickin' work.
We've got about 5 questions lined up. Is there anything else you want to add to that there, good? Right here in the front?
Yes. So for acculturation, we have a lot of rules. There's a lot of logistics we have to go through. How do you guys also make it fun?
I'm sorry,
That's
fun?
hard. Yeah.
The question, to repeat, was there's a lot of rules and stuff, and how do you eventually get to FUN or FUND?
So we're starting our logistics and operations calls, and I will stop us. I'll be like, guys, we need to have fun, but not too much fun. So I'll turn on the fun, and then we have fun. And then I'm like, guys, we're having too much fun. So it's like, how do you just put it how do you make people excited? And then also as a leader, get yourself excited again and not get so bogged down in all the rules and times you've been burned by campers that didn't get it.
Wow. 3 things. Let's take a newbie, because that's your most difficult task usually. I break it down, and there's the expectations. Leaving aside the 10 principles, we expect them to have read those and understand what they are, and they'll answer questions. But in terms of the camp, there's the expectations, overall expectations of the camp, how we operate, what we do, what our gift is, and how you're going to be part of that and be part of our community. Then entirely separately is how our camp works, and where's the shower, and how does that stuff work, and what do you do in the kitchen. And you separate those because it's too much, and you treat them very differently. And that's kind of a boring, you just hand them the stuff and you answer their questions. And then the third part is our community is about, as I said, we all take care of each other. We're building community. We make it fun. And so you separate those three things. You don't try to do them all at the same time because it's too overwhelming. I think that's a simple answer.
Halcyon, you were about to say.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a huge. This is kind of the crux, I think, of running a camp. Is how do you create something that's consistent and dependable and providing, while not making it into a job for everybody, because no one wants that. And I remember in the early days, I felt it was like my job to pay everybody with gratitude, and thank you, like, and I had a really powerful moment when year one, a guy covered in sores from all the welding he'd done for us, like, came up to me just like bursting in tears, saying thanks for the opportunity, to do this. And so finally this head shift to like, oh, if we can get people to add their talents into something where they understand the vision as this incredible opportunity, it's not so much fun, but it's in your purpose, and it's super rewarding. So you can do something that isn't fun, but if it's in alignment with something that like matters and makes your heart sing, then you're going to be happy about it.
Yeah, it feeds you.
At the same time, like, so our camp has been working with the pendulum of we started with no shifts, just like, hey, work if you feel like it, and you have this pride of like creating something awesome, so everything works out, and then start to have a reputation and people depend on you for water, and suddenly it's like, we can't have the water bar shut down, we got to have shifts. And then people go, well, I didn't follow my dream girl because I had shift to water bar, and so we're experimenting with kind of how to make a line between required shifts and even like a runner person who finds people like, hey, so and so just ran after their dream girl, can you fill this shift for them? And you recognize that it is a gift, because there's a difference between doing something out of obligation versus doing something that's a gift. And so it's not fun, but if it feels like a gift, then that's the challenge.
I want to build on that, and a comment that was in the plenary. Somebody said, when we have a shift of any kind, whether it's the coffee tea service at 7 in the fucking morning, because you got to get up at 6:30, or actually you just play through all night, of course. Or we have a communal dinner every night where a group of people come together, the build, everything else. We do everything in teams. We very rarely give people a serious task. I mean, keeping track of the water, fine. Sweeping off the solar panels, fine. But all the big shift things were always done in groups, which gives you both. It means we're putting people who might not know each other together, and then they do something together, and it's automatically fun. And it also gives you the ability to have somebody is sick, doesn't get back, met that playa princess, and they're off, and so they got to do a different shift.
Overlap.
But the key thing is, if you do everything in groups, it's always more fun.
The other huge benefit of that is that some camps have like a strict vision, and then everyone's in charge of making sure that the vision is enacted. And sometimes you have a direction, and then teams go, hey, we know what direction we're going, so you guys come together, and it's got to be pink. But other than that, do what you want. And when you've got a team of people that feels like, hey, I've never really been in charge of interior decorating, but
figure it out.
Hey, and then people get sued. Then they spend extra time, and they make it awesome because they're not in charge of, this task. They're on a team that's in charge of making the dome awesome.
Yep.
Dude, I would literally take that, then leverage to you that redefine what fun means. Really redefine what fun means, because when you're in your purpose or you're in your bliss of just being with your friends, sweaty and dirty, and you work through the night because you really, when you're freaking done, like, to me, that shit's so fun. And it's before the gate open, that's it for me. There's my meat and potatoes. Spracked out climbing a dome to hang some freaking lights so that we can get the skin on it, and we're a day late.
Hey, question right here, and then we're gonna take a break. But
so for my camp, I want to start documenting and have like a written down mission and rules and expectations for what new campers are going to do and what leads are going to do. Does anyone? This is not just limited to you guys, but does anyone have existing documentation that I could start with as a template or a starting point? Yeah. And how do I find that?
Make that public, don't we?
Probably after.
Okay.
And where you were in the last session with that Rose from Pink Mammoth.
Okay.
She also, and you can write Rose at pinkmammoth.org. She's also got a dot too. And I asked,
or just go surfing for camps, whether on Facebook pages or elsewhere. So many of them have one, and often their manuals, you know, their owners' manuals and stuff are just right there.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Naked Heart has a really good wiki that I've stolen from and been inspired by. So, was someone starting to speak over there? I thought I heard. No? Okay, go ahead.
I've got an entire Google Drive file of like 5 years of almost weekly shit you should know posts. I've got
what we call them
every
too.
recipe and meal plan we've ever used, instructions for cooking meals for 100 people. Yeah, I don't know what you're looking for.
Say it again. Where was it?
on Google
I'll
Drive.
get my card after this.
what camp are you?
Okay,
Farm Center Fund Learners.
No, I'm
Can I
gonna
camp
take
with you
yours,
guys?
and then we're gonna
Can I
take
camp?
like a 3-minute break where I'm gonna ask you guys to talk to each other again. But go ahead with your question.
I had one suggestion for fun, and then I have a question. One thing that I started last year that worked really well, so I'm going to build on it, is, and I was a former middle school teacher, so this I got like those beauty, like the sashes for beauty queens, and then I found online these like great little like graphics for all the 10 principles. And so when we had like people join the camp beforehand, when they're being introduced to the camp, they got their sash for and then through the beginning, like through the pre-burn, and then during the burn, whenever they did something that demonstrated one of the 10 principles, like we got like the bullhorn, like "Excuse me, everybody," you know, and then pointed it out and then slapped it on their little badge.
You gave them gold stars?
Yes.
Thank you for that idea.
Oh my God. I want a middle school teacher like you.
The one thing that I wasn't happy with was how we did, how we acculturated consent to apply it. We did that kind of a little skitty thing, but I was just wondering if anybody has anything that they do to really do that.
We work with the BED, the Bureau of Health. And they teach a fantastic workshop, and you can offer to do that. We do it mandated Monday at 10 a.m. when everyone's in, and everyone attends.
Good.
This that organization, if you Google them, I've donated to them for a couple of years, and they send me a whole bunch of materials that we use for consent conversations, both with my camp and then also with Sacramento region. What I want to
tell me the name of that out loud. I'll write it down.
And say it out loud for.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of these stickers. You guys have.
Say it out loud.
Say it out loud for everybody.
If you search Facebook for 11th Principle Consent, she's the top result, and it's a labor of love for her. She's a therapist, and she's always quick to respond to my emails, is always hooking me up with some materials. So the hard thing I want you to think about for about 3 minutes, I'll turn on some music, and then we'll come back, as two things. It's like what to do when it's clearly just not going well. Because I think that we don't like to talk about this. We want to avoid it. And it's also one of those things, because it's so scary, it affects our leadership. And I think sometimes when we're afraid of conflict, we will go through a lot of pain and suffering to avoid conflict, right? So I want you to think about, like, what do we do when that happens? And then the question that's like a big aha moment to me this year, this is not something I practiced in the past, but I think I'm going to start. I'm going to get my leadership team behind on this, is that before, part of that rite of passage, when we welcome someone into our camp, is right then we say, if this doesn't work, this is how we know, and this is what we'll do. So that then, if, God forbid, we get to that day where we need to be a parting of ways, this isn't a personal rejection. This was part of our commitment to each other at the very beginning. But so I want you to think about, like, how do you handle it now? How would you like to handle it? What do you think about that idea? Let's take about 3 minutes, and then we'll come right back. And if you need to get a glass of water or something, now's probably a good time to do it too.
Boy, that's important. It depends what the failing is. Is it a failing of, it turns out we just defined it as pony? That doesn't hurt the camp. It just, we let them know at the end, you're never coming back. That's not getting their shifts or whatever. If it's something that hurts the camp, as I said, we have a three-party triumvirate. We meet together, so nobody's reacting on their own. We decide what to do, and then we collectively meet with the person. Up to and including, you are out of this camp by noon, or your shit is on the street. We've done that. Oh yeah, somebody was dealing with
not somebody but we had a co-founder of the camp this year, Kevin breaking into our leadership, and they've left the camp. It was like a really tough thing. We had in the past, it was like I was kind of like philosopher king, benevolent leader, and so I would ask people, when we finally had policies in place, and then people ran, like this person's across the line, and then we had committees. It was I would like, we do not have to figure it out. We're still listening because it was a struggle for us.
It's like a four-person board together, or like kids. I'm not that kid, it's just a
See, that's the hard thing is like, I was worried there was going to be a civil war like within our camp. People who like think that she's fighting for what's important for them. But it says like she's in the way of growth. And it's like, we had a huge, half of our kind of board stepped down this year. For all different reasons. It wasn't like a struggle, but it was kind of like, we finally put enough systems in place that you don't need me anymore. This is hard and it's not as fun as it used to be. Part of it is because our pendulum swung too far into shifts and responsibilities were too high. But it's interesting about this topic is like, luckily somebody in the camp said, I want to flew out from Seattle to drive with me in the burn, and basically told me all the things that he thought was wrong with camp. And nobody was talking about it. So it's huge, like, no one wanted to stay in the team, and it was like, so Ed had like a first meeting on everyone's you guys gotta love this camp and have to say something.
We've got about 2 minutes left.
Camp was so much bigger. You can have monster rumor mills, factions.
Right, that's something. Yeah, I'll be like 3 months after the burn, and people are like, you know what happened with so and so, right? I'm like, no, what? That is something.
The guy that asked something to the guy, so we're doing it. Super slander. I'd have to always funny to me though, everybody was slandering that, but they, like, he literally was like, I think we should have concierge service in RV where we do a turn down bed service daily and permit us for a flower on the pillow, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Alright guys, you got 1 minute.
Yeah. Well, there are people who just thrive on conflict wherever they go.
Yeah.
Draw your close attention.
I love where I live.
Being self-employed myself, it's like every time I have to look, I'm like, oh, here we go again. It's like 3 years of financials. You were talking about having challenges finding a new place to live.
Well, where are you? San Diego. Yeah, I have a very non-traditional work history, so like I gotta find someone who wants to rent to somebody who will let me explain my bank statement and things like that.
All right, if you guys can put a bookmarker on whatever your conversation is, go 1, 2, 3. Eyes on me. Thank you so much. So.
One of you three want to lead off talking about what do you do? Does your camp have a process for when things go wrong and you get to the point, or what does it look like coming up to that point where you go, yeah, we need to part ways? How do you come to that decision, and then maybe how do you execute that? If you've had that happen,
No, everyone's always been perfect. We've loved everybody.
That's what I thought.
We divided as I mentioned, we have a 3-member triumvirate. It's kind of our XCOM or something. it depends what the problem is. If the problem is that they're a sparkle pony and they're just not doing their thing and they're just going out and partying and they're not helping and so forth, that's not a harm to the camp. They're not threatening anybody in the camp, and they're not threatening the camp itself or our standing with the Borg. We deal with that by just gritting our teeth, get to the end of the burn, and then one of us will sit down with them personally and explain, you didn't do it. You didn't do what we talked about. You probably want to burn, but you're not going to burn with us again. If you'd like to find a new camp, we'll help you. And more people have been tossed out of our camp by not being invited back because they're sparkle ponies and everything else combined.
Yeah.
Sure. So that's easy.
Yep.
What if they are hassling somebody in our camp? Then we will, it depends on the situation, of course, but we'll intervene with one of the three as a mediator and do some conflict resolution and de-escalation and do what we can. If the person is or continues to be a threat to someone in the camp or the camp as a whole or our standing with the Borg, then the three of us have to meet together to make a decision, which removes the emotional impact of whichever one has been dealing with it. Right. We come to a decision, and then we collectively talk to the person away from everybody else, ranging from this behavior has to change immediately to get your shit out of here by noon or we're putting your shit in the street, and we have done that. But it's that process of push off the ones you don't care about. If it's a problem, we deal with it together because we watch out for each other.
I appreciate one characteristic I hear in there is that you change the narrative from it being a personal confrontation between two persons to diffusing that some and saying, even if you thought Jeremy was super escalated, I've got Jackie on one side and someone else on the other side, and we've all conferred together. And I also like that your goal is not to put them publicly on trial.
Think of it from an HR perspective. You never want to have an HR conversation without a witness. Okay.
Have you had any problems in your camp?
Well, occasionally. And there's the challenges within established camp members is something that we're still, I think, working out, that I would be unfit to give advice or share on. But I think we've had situations where if somebody is a new member, they are basically on probation until they're accepted into the family. And we've had times when, during the process of monthly meetings, people have felt uncomfortable around someone. Generally, a man who sees people in their intimacy of long-term relationships and decides that they want to be as intimate. And if that's addressed, we've addressed that, briefly. And then, but basically, it's kind of a no tolerance. Like, if there's someone in the camp, in the family, who doesn't feel safe with a new person, then they're uninvited. It's just, we got to protect the safety of the family.
Does that mean anyone can veto that person?
Potentially, yes.
Submit for veto, right? Yeah. Submit for discussion.
Yeah.
What any other questions that kind of came out of these dialogues you guys were having right here?
Well, I wonder how we reconcile this conversation about who's not allowed in your camp with radical inclusion. I don't have a good answer, but I'm curious.
Radical inclusion means that anybody is welcome at Burning Man.
Right.
That's what I thought.
Doesn't mean they're welcome in my tent. Doesn't mean they're welcome in my camp. Doesn't mean they're welcome in my pants. But radical inclusion means they're welcome at Burning Man.
Right.
They can start their own camp. I'm fine with that.
It's called being an equal
that question
opportunity.
because it's such a good fucking question.
Sorry.
Yeah, radical inclusion means you are welcome to show up. It does not mean I have to like you. That is on you. And radical inclusion does not mean you are entitled to the same treatment everyone else gets. It just means you get to exist and be present.
I love you.
I do. Well, yeah. Follow-up question or comment there? Yeah, please.
New to coming, and they may all fit in a different culture. Would it be nice to maybe have some kind of system of helping them find the culture that best fits them? Maybe there's a way for all of us to look at all the new candidates.
Theme Camp Symposium. Symposium speed dating.
You help out your other camps and say, you know what, these guys look like they might be a good fit for you. Maybe we should have a better system.
I think we're going to put a pin in that for next year and add an open discussion room, maybe about this size if we're here, that is for camps that are looking for new camp mates. And I know we're all like TCOs, but you know, but we have somebody that we want to. It's like what do you call it? Sports. Like when you do the sports draft.
Yeah. It's so dead.
Come to the retirement village to play bocce ball.
There's a hand. There's a hand in the back here, and then I'm going to come over here. The one thing I want to interject though there is to go back to culture, is that when you know who you are very well and you can articulate it, then it is much easier to have that conversation with someone else and say, this isn't a good fit. But if you have not clearly defined who you are, what your values are, what you love, what you guys do together, then it becomes this thing, well, we were just looking for someone who could fog a mirror, but now that you're here, we don't like you. And like, that doesn't go very well, right?
No.
So if we're just looking for bodies, we're going to have problems because there's a lot of people that are all too happy to like, and they have misconceptions about what it's going to mean to be a part of a Burning Man camp. So I would encourage you that when someone leaves your camp, there were two sides to that relationship. It was not just someone who took a test and failed. So I think we have a responsibility, and I do think we have a responsibility to be sensitive and to own our half of that emotional and leader process. It can't be just an ego like, well, this is my camp, get the fuck out. I think it is worthy of some grace and some humanity and some best effort.
So we've also had good experiences when someone was kind of in a vibe that wasn't quite meshing, and having a talk with them and saying, like, there's certain behaviors that you're doing that aren't really working, and then they turned it around and said, all right, I won't bring that to the camp, and they worked fine.
Did you still have the question, or you're good?
I do have a question.
Okay.
There is a pretty good resource that exists that I think is like really underutilized because people don't really know about it. I myself just discovered it kind of by accident recently. It's I think spark.burningman.org. It's essentially like a burner for burner, like, hey, I'm working on this art project and you need sales, or
Raise a
hand if you need these.
Spark.
How many people, raise a hand in here, how many people knew about Spark? Okay, that's like half.
Use it.
All right, I had two questions over here that I held off. There were two gentlemen.
I was just going to add, I know that East Bay Burners did a meet and greet where camp leads were able to get up on stage for 1 minute at a time. You can pitch your camp.
That's super, it's like an open house.
Yeah, and they announced it on Facebook as well. I would assume other regional groups.
We have one coming up in Sacramento in April.
The nice thing about it, I had to do it kind of impromptu, and it helped me focus on coming up with 1 minute speech of what are you doing and what are you looking for. So that really helped.
That's good.
Right behind you.
So we're a huge camp, we're a huge village. How do you manage expectations of members that live within the Bay Area versus where they can go to build and they can do that kind of stuff versus members that live outside and not just have them do more stuff on Playa because that's nebulous. Are there specific ways that you treat out of region campus differently?
Thank you.
Really good.
I'm glad this question.
I'm going to just jump on this one right now.
Go. Yeah.
I'm going to jump down the throat of this one. We're called the Blissfitz Retirement Village. The village used to be 2 camps, and then they changed it to 3 camps, and now it's back to 2 camps. We're still the same frickin' camp. There's one village, they're from Vegas. They're kind of their own fully operational Death Star. But they do their thing on our frontage. They have days where like their camp is like, out on the street with a megaphone, and they're making the grilled cheese sandwich or quesadillas and the Bloody Marys, and we have the bocce ball and shuffleboard tournament, and every day like they're out there with the bullhorns, and like it turns into a total shit show, and it's amazing. And that's their time. And then like our camp, the Blissfitz camp, has their time as well on our frontage. There are people from all over the world. There are people of means. There are artists. the way that we look at acculturation is not peripheral. It's like multilateral. It's like a prism. So you've got somebody of means that's flying in and has an RV. Granted, there's not many of them. But the way we look at acculturating this grouping of people that are still highly vetted, very much have to get in their hands dirty. Everyone at camp in this village is required to do 2 3.5-hour shifts on our frontage, front of house. 2 shifts during the week, back of house. Sorting trash, kitchen shift, whatever it could be, like those are things that they have to do. The people that fly in specifically, on top of that, this was for me because I realized, I think it was 2014, I've been going to Burning Man since 97. I had a client that's like, take me and my friends to Burning Man. And 2 years in, I went, oh my God, I'm totally part of the problem. And like marched into the org with my rap book and went, if this is me and this is what I'm doing, and I'm an old school burner, there's an issue, as we see today, it's coming in hot. I didn't need somebody to tell me, like, I needed to find a solution and be part of, moving things forward. I just wanted to move it forward. And now, in the cultural direction setting of really identifying criteria, I still have work to do. We're not there yet. We've relied so much on OSS that we now have a criteria from cultural direction setting that's like, you still need to do better. But my point is that the people that are coming in, that are flying in, they have to be volunteer and be of service outside of our camp. Lamplighter, temple guardian, whatever it is. I don't care who they are, how much money they have. Yeah. Nobody cares. And when they get to Burning Man and they do those things, there's that moment. You see it in their eyes, and they get it, and they're like, holy crap. And they come back and they do more and more and more. So just to clarify, your question. Sorry, I went on a tangent.
No, your question was a little. You're about saying we have burners that are here in the Bay Area, and it's easy for them to put in time pre-playa.
They help build the art car, cook stuff.
And then, but my question to you is: are you talking about balance of contribution, or are you talking about acculturation? And that's not to say it's off topic, but just to make sure I understand your question.
There's a section of people in the Bay Area, they see each other a lot.
Yeah.
Who are these people flying in? How do we acclimate them or acculturate them?
Yeah.
So it feels like they're included and also contributing.
Go ahead. Yeah. So I can relate to this, but one of you guys.
One of the things that, first of all, I think it's impossible to make it fair. Like we're San Diego based, but we have groups all over the place. Some other groups will make something and bring it, but it's impossible to keep it fair. But one thing that we do because we have people all over is part of our participation requirements is that everyone has to create a introduction, basically blog posts with photographs and a description of the things that you wouldn't tell anyone except your closest friends. Like you really go intimate, and we say write something and then read what other people write and then read it again, so that by the time then rewrite yours once you see how vulnerable people get, and because by the time you get there, you meet these people for the first time and you already love them because you've got, it's not just some random, it's somebody who like is just got unemployed or just did this, and so we kind of forced people to, just like you have a camp gift financial contribution, you have a vulnerability contribution to make us more intimate.
That's very clever.
I like that. That was the answer you're looking for.
Yeah.
On a tangent. I'm so sorry. I just want to say this. It's 5 o'clock. We got to wrap up.
Okay.
I got to run, and they asked me to make an announcement. The announcement is the bar or little cocktail soiree showing is downstairs, not the bar over here. They're having some problem with their credit card machine. Would prefer cash and tip the bartenders.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
So you two guys connect if you want to. We could probably keep this conversation going for another 2 hours pretty easily.
Another 2 weeks.
So I would say this. If you got the little bookmark that I sent you on your phone, if you will refresh it tomorrow, I will put contact information on there if you want to continue the conversation. But I would love to interact with you guys there are 2 forums that I feel like are really appropriate for this conversation that are happening on Facebook, for lack of a better place. One is a TCO Leaders website or forum. So if you're not in there, message me. I'll get you in there if you're a theme camp leader. That is a great place to be having conversation about stuff like this. And then also there is a Black Rock City city culture conversation. I've totally lost, even though I've been participating in this for 8 months. But if you are interested in either of those, I can add you to them. But they are, we have lots of Facebook groups for like hazings and harassing and trolling, right?
Right.
But these two I hold in pretty high regard as a place where I have gone with a vulnerable question at times and found a lot of really good support. And so I hope that if you don't find yourself in a geography where you're like, hey, I've got theme camp leaders I can go hang out with face to face, I hope that you will make those connections virtually. And I want to tell each of you, thank you. I know that you bleed. I know that you dream. I know that your finances have been impacted. I know that your families have been impacted. Probably your love life at one point or the other. Like, it has, like all good art, it has cost us almost everything at times. And so I want to tell you thank you very much. I do think that it's not just an 8-day party in the desert. I do think that we are changing people's lives and that we are a part of having our own lives changed. It is very meaningful, and I want to thank each of you for being a part of it. Please give yourselves a hand.
Thank you for leading a camp. Thank you.
If you're a hugger, hugs down in the bar.
I actually refuse to follow you for a very specific reason. Every single solitary I have posted, I have that moment of like, fuck this, fuck everything, it all sucks, over it. And I swear within that moment in my head, one of your bitches pops up, and it's exactly what I need. I don't know, hundreds or thousands of people, somehow or another, the right one always finds me right when I need it. And it has saved multiple lives.
What a gift.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.